Iran, Iran, Iran. It's been inescapable in the news lately, hasn't it? And I get it. It's a lot to process. You want the key facts, not just endless speculation, right?
Absolutely. And it's a critical time to be asking these questions, for sure.
Well, let's dive right in then, shall we? We've got this earthquake on October 5th, a 4.5 magnitude. Sounds minor, and in the grand scheme of things, probably was. But then you go online, and bam! Everyone's saying it's a secret nuke test because of where it happened in Iran.
Yeah, I've seen those theories floating around too.
So what's the truth? Should we be worried, or is this just social media frenzy as usual?
Okay, so the earthquake itself, Semenan province, right? Pretty remote part of Iran.
Right.
About 10 kilometers deep, which the Institute of Geophysics at the University of Teen confirmed. Now, that depth is shallow, which I understand is feeding the speculation, but it's not entirely outside the norm for seismic activity in that region.
So not necessarily a giant flashing red light, just from the earthquake data itself.
Exactly. Look, given Iran's, shall we say, history, it's natural for folks to jump to conclusions. But we gotta stick to credible evidence. And so far, officially, nothing points to this being anything other than a natural earthquake.
No smoking gun, as they say.
Precisely.
But you did bring up Iran's history, and that's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Nuclear program.
Right.
Even if this earthquake was just an earthquake, it's got everyone thinking about what Iran's capable of. So give us the rundown. Where do things actually stand right now?
Okay, so quick history lesson, right? Iran's been under suspicion for decades, basically using a civilian nuclear program as a front to get the technology for weapons. Then in 2010, you had that Stuxnet attack.
Ah, yeah, the whole malware targeting centrifuges thing. Pretty big deal at the time.
Huge setback for their program, no doubt. And then comes the 2015 JCPOA deal.
That was supposed to be the big solution, right?
Yeah.
Prevent Iran from getting the bomb.
Exactly. Limit their uranium enrichment, lift some sanctions, everyone breathes a sigh of relief, or so we thought.
Because it kind of all fell apart.
2018, U.S. pulls out, the whole thing unravels. And since then, well, Iran's been playing catch-up, let's just say that.
And by catch-up, you mean?
The IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency, just came out with a report. Not good. They're saying Iran's closer than ever to 90% uranium enrichment.
Now, for those of us who aren't, nuclear physicists, what's the magic number?
90%. That's weapons-grade uranium. That's the stuff that makes bombs go boom.
So when we hear 90%, we should be dot concerned.
It's a major step, no doubt. But UT, and this is a big but, building a nuke. Way more complicated than just enriching uranium. You've got metallurgy, the engineering of the device itself, testing.
Right, so it's not like they've got a button they can just press and boom, instant nuclear weapon.
Exactly. Think of it this way. You can have all the ingredients for a cake, right? Doesn't mean you can bake one. A lot can go wrong between having the stuff and having a functioning weapon.
Okay, so it's not instant doomsday. But realistically, how long are we talking about here? Some experts I've seen say weeks, others say years before Iran actually has a bomb. What's the real answer?
Weeks, years, it honestly depends who you ask. And even then, it's not just about when, it's about what. A bomb can mean a lot of things, right?
That's true. I mean, we've all heard those terms thrown around, dirty bomb, tactical nuke. What's the difference? And does it even matter?
Huge difference, actually. You've got think tanks like the Heritage Foundation saying Iran could potentially test a device within weeks. But, that's assuming a lot of things. Like they're going full speed ahead already, have all the pieces in place. On the other hand, you've got folks like Ehud Barak, former PM of Israel.
Like, knows a thing or two about this stuff.
Exactly. His estimate, at least a year before Iran has a single usable nuke. And even then, he's talking 5 years, maybe more, to have an actual arsenal.
So one thing to be able to cause an explosion, another thing entirely to have a whole, scary stockpile of weapons ready to go.
100%. One crude device does not equal a credible nuclear threat on the world stage. It's about reliability. It's about delivery systems. There's levels to this.
Right, because it's not like they can just, put it in a suitcase and that's that.
And that's what makes all this recent stuff even more nerve-wracking, frankly. You can't separate it from what happened on October 1st.
The missile attack on Israel. I was going to ask you about that. Biggest one in recent history, right?
By a long shot. We're talking an estimated 180 ballistic missiles. Direct attack on Israel, no messing around. And Israel's vowed retaliation.
Yeah, things escalated pretty quickly after that.
And for good reason. This isn't just some border skirmish. This has the potential to be huge. And then you add in this whole nuclear question mark.
Yeah, suddenly the stakes are a whole lot higher.
Exactly. It's not just about those missiles anymore. It's about what might be coming down the line. And that's what has everyone who's paying attention, holding their breath right now.
Okay, so taking a step back, trying to make sense of all this. We've gone from an earthquake to Iran's nuclear capabilities to a potential war in the Middle East. Big picture.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if Iran actually gets a nuclear weapon? What does the world look like then?
Oh, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And nobody really has a good answer. But we got to consider the possibilities. First and foremost, you're talking about a direct threat to Israel. Now, Israel's always been deliberately vague about their own nukes.
Right, the whole we don't confirm or deny policy?
Exactly. But most experts agree. They've got them. So now you've got two nuclear-armed countries staring each other down. And not exactly a recipe for peace and harmony, is it?
Definitely not. And then what? It just becomes a nuclear standoff in the Middle East.
Could be. And that's terrifying enough on its own, but then there's the ripple effect. You think other countries in the region are going to sit back and watch. Saudi Arabia in particular, they've got the money, they've got the tech. They could go nuclear pretty fast if they felt like they had to.
So one country gets the bomb, and suddenly everyone wants one. Yeah. Nuclear arms race, just like that.
Exactly. And we all know how well that usually turns out. Look, the Middle East is volatile enough as it is. You add multiple nuclear powers into the mix. The risk of something going catastrophically wrong, whether by accident, miscalculation, or even just someone loses their cools, it skyrockets.
So we're not just talking about a regional conflict anymore. This has the potential to go global.
Oh, absolutely. Don't forget, Iran has ties to groups that a lot of the West considers, let's say, problematic, groups that would love to get their hands on nuclear tech, even if it's just the knowledge.
So we're talking about potential proliferation, terrorism.
All on the table. It's not a good scenario, no matter how you slice it. And this isn't some Tom Clancy novel. This is the reality we're facing now.
Yeah, it's starting to feel very real very quickly. And honestly, it's overwhelming. Is there even anything that can be done at this point to, like, de-escalate? Or are we just on this train hurtling towards disaster?
Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The situation is about as tense as it gets. But giving up hope isn't an option either.
So what's the answer? What can be done?
Honestly, we need some serious diplomacy, and we need it fast. The first step, and maybe the hardest one, is getting everyone back to the table to talk about Iran's nuclear program.
You're talking about something like the JCPOA. But that didn't exactly work out so well last time.
True, but it's a starting point. Look, the U.S. needs to be involved again, along with everyone else who was part of the original deal. And then you need other players, like China, Russia, maybe some European nations, to act as mediators.
Right, it takes a village or a global summit or something. But you're right, got to start somewhere. Though I got to say, after that missile attack and everything else that's happened, trust isn't exactly in abundant supply right now.
Yeah, not going to argue with you there. But we can't just go straight to, throw up our hands and hope for the best either. And we definitely can't go straight to military action. That's a whole other can of worms nobody wants to open.
So diplomacy it is. Though it kind of feels like we're asking for a miracle at this point.
Look, history's full of seemingly impossible situations that got solved because people actually sat down and talked to each other. It's not easy, it takes time, but it's the only way.
Well, fingers crossed, right? So, back to Iran for a sec. They've got their own problems, too. Their economy's a mess. Politically, it's a tinderbox. People aren't happy. How does that play into all this?
Oh, it's a huge factor. When a country's backed into a corner, you never know how they'll lash out.
So it could go either way. More aggressive to distract from problems at home, or more willing to negotiate to ease the pressure.
Exactly. And that unpredictability, that's what makes this whole thing so much scarier.
Agreed. It's like we talk about Iran, we talk about Israel, we talk about these big global players.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's real people who are going to feel the consequences of whatever happens next.
Never forget that. Families, kids. This isn't just some abstract geopolitical chess match. There are lives on the line.
So where do we go from here? What should we be watching for in the coming days, weeks, months to know if things are getting better or worse?
All eyes on Israel right now. They've made it clear they're going to retaliate for that missile attack. Question is, how? Airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities? Something more. Indirect. Or will they take a breath, see if diplomacy has a chance?
And then there's the rest of the world. Is everyone actually going to be on the same page about how to deal with Iran? Or will it be a total free-for-all, everyone for themselves?
That's going to be the real test, honestly. The U.S. and its allies, they've all condemned the attacks. But are they actually going to do anything about it? Tougher sanctions, military aid to Israel. A lot of tough questions, not a lot of easy answers.
Well, I, for one, will be anxiously awaiting
Yeah.
something to happen. Hopefully something good. This has been to put it mildly, a stressful deep dive.
To say the least. But even with all the doom and gloom, we can't give in to despair. There's always hope. Diplomacy might feel like a long shot right now, but it's literally the only way out of this mess without things getting much, much worse.
So, to our listeners, what can they do? Besides, hiding under the blankets and hoping it all goes away.
Don't do that. Seriously, though, knowledge is power. Stay informed. Read from a variety of sources. Don't just get stuck in your echo chamber. And most importantly, talk to people. Have these conversations, even if they're uncomfortable, because the more we understand what's at stake, the better equipped we'll be to make good decisions, both personally and as a society.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for me to go, I don't know, find a stress ball or something. Thank you so much for walking us through all this. Your insights have been invaluable.
It's been a pleasure. And hey, if those stress balls actually work, let me know.
I'll be sure to. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. It's a complicated world out there, but together we can at least try to make sense of it. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time.